Thank you very much. Call the meeting to order. Please be seated. Motion to reconvene the open council meeting. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. And let me see, I've got a couple of items here tonight that I have to deal with, but the first one, and probably the most important one for the evening, is that I wanted to announce that tonight we have with us the 6th Centre Lake Scout Troop, who are here working on their citizenship and role of government badge. I met with them a little bit earlier, but I wanted to, on behalf of the City of Burnaby, on behalf of Council, to welcome them here tonight. And if you would please stand as 6th Centre Troop. There they are, Council. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here with us. And I wanted to start the meeting with kind of a sad note for all of us. It's in regard to our former councillor and longtime friend and freeman of the city, Celeste Redmond. She passed away on December the 1st, and all of us are very sad to lose this remarkable citizen who was a champion for the city and for social causes everywhere throughout her life. She served as a councillor from 1990 to 2005. That was a 15-year career. But she worked throughout her life to ensure justice in her community and for people around her. She dedicated herself to the service and to the betterment of Burnaby citizens, and our city has benefited and will continue to benefit from Celeste's actions and the policies and initiatives that she introduced and championed, many of which form the basis for some of our city's best attributes and proudest achievements. Celeste was already a successful business person and well-known community leader before she decided to run for a seat on City Council. She moved to Burnaby in 1966, and she became a respected voice in her North Burnaby neighborhood. In 1983, she tried her hand at local politics. She wasn't successful on her initial attempt, but she served on a number of council committees and became involved as a volunteer, including working on the ad hoc committee on dog control and the advisory planning committee. Most notable was her work as chairperson of the Hastings Street Advisory Committee. This committee was formed in 1989 with the purpose of reviewing the Hastings Street Community Plan to upgrade the Hastings commercial area economically and to prepare land use guidelines for the Hastings Street area while considering residents and businesses. This was an interactive review process which really did revitalize the Heights, and she's been credited with playing a very significant role in this process. When in 1990, Celeste won a seat on council, all of Burnaby learned very quickly why North Burnaby residents thought so much of her. She then applied her leadership citywide. Her knowledge and problem solving and her knack for seeing the big picture led her to becoming a member and eventually chair of the Housing and Civic Development Committee. And during tenure as chair, the committee was involved in everything from affordable housing initiatives to senior housing projects to neighborhood rezonings. She worked in many other ways to improve the quality of life for Burnaby residents and was a member and later chair of the Community Issues and Social Planning Committee, sitting on this committee from 1991 to 1998, with 4 years as chair. Throughout her time on council, another of Celeste's passions came to the fore. She was a long-time animal rights advocate and a member of the Wildlife Rescue Association and the SPCA. And she worked hard to improve our animal bylaws and to offer incentives, including rebates for spaying and neutering of household pets. She also strengthened our city's animal control bylaws, giving officers the authority to investigate complaints of cruelty and neglect and enter on property. Celeste was passionate about protecting her natural environment, and from 1991 to 2005, she sat as a member and then vice chair of the Environment and Waste Management Committee, fulfilling an early campaign promise to ensure that urban growth in Burnaby was tempered by careful planning and the maintenance of quality green space. Her knowledge and environmental concerns were called upon when she was asked to chair the Chevron Greenbelt Buffer Zone Advisory Committee. She was a big force in ensuring that Chevron was kept to all of the requirements and that Chevron became a good neighbor to people in her community. She was also very involved with the Burnaby Historical Society and was committed to ensuring a connection to the past for the benefit of present and future generations. She sat as the vice chair of the Community Heritage Committee from 1997 to 2005 and was involved in creation of the City of Burnaby Archives. She was enthusiastic about all projects that had an effect on her fellow citizens, but she was particularly concerned when it was people who were vulnerable. She worked tirelessly during her time on council, and I know that I speak for all Burnaby residents, all of the City of Burnaby staff, and all of the members of council when I say that we will miss Celeste and will always be grateful for her friendship and her tireless dedication to Burnaby citizens. And if I can ask everyone to stand up, I'd like to take a moment of silence for Freeman Celeste Redmond. Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll move now on to the year-end council address. Tonight, on behalf of Council, I have the pleasure of reviewing the great year that we've had in Burnaby in 2015 and of taking a look forward at many of the exciting projects that we have underway and on the horizon. It was a year of remarkable achievements. Our town centers, which we can now all really see taking shape in the way that we planned more than 20 years ago, continued to attract major investment, providing the framework for sustainable development. They're demonstrating the significant benefits of concentrating density in specific designated areas. It allows us to preserve our city's beautiful parks, establish single-family neighborhoods, and our urban villages. New design standards approved by Council early in 2015 ensure that development in all areas of the town centers incorporates attractive street and sidewalk design that considers people of all ages and abilities. In addition, we continue to work with artists, developers, and community members to create the public artworks that now enhance so many areas of our city. Burnaby permit values are expected to reach their highest value ever by year-end, with many important projects advancing in the public, commercial, and industrial sectors. The total permit values to the end of November of this year are an impressive $720 million, with an expectation that we will achieve over $800 million in building permit values by year-end. Prior to this year, the highest annual value was in 2008 of $792 million. All city activities respect Burnaby's sharp focus on sustainability and are guided by our official community plan and our award-winning economic development and social sustainability strategies. Our new community-driven environmental sustainability strategy will be complete early in 2016. It builds on our many strengths and will make Burnaby an even more livable, healthy, and resilient city. Results from the Burnaby Community Energy and Emissions Plan will also be presented for public input and feedback. SEEP proposes a long-term framework for reducing energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions in Burnaby. Work is also advancing on the transportation plan update, which will explore creative ways to manage the city's transportation needs while contributing to our social, economic, and environmental objectives. Citizens will be invited to engage in this planning process in 2016. Another project that will yield significant environmental benefits is the recently launched complete conversion of streetlights to LEDs. Burnaby is the first city in British Columbia to begin full conversion. This will dramatically lower energy consumption while improving neighborhood lighting. As we build the city, we never lose sight of the importance of preserving and enhancing existing assets. Recently, as part of an infrastructure renewal project, the city completed upgrades on Rumble Street that included an urban trail. We also began work on the rehabilitation of Grey and Cedar Creeks, remediating erosion sites and improving watershed health. It is gratifying that salmon have again returned to many Burnaby creeks, including Still Creek, which for decades did not support spawning. This is a direct result of long-standing environmental policies and associated restoration of waterways. This year, we also upgraded many park and recreation facilities, including replacement of the artificial turf on one of the fields at Burnaby Lake Sports Complex, replacement of playgrounds at various parks, including Harwood, where additional improvements were made, including the introduction of a loop pathway around the park perimeter, installation of new shade structures at Confederation and Cameron Parks, rebuilding the spray pool at Suncrest Park to meet new standards for water play facilities, continuing new trail development on Burnaby Mountain South Slope, and improving accessibility at various parks. In addition, we began work on the development of an ice arena in South Burnaby and a feasibility study for the replacement of C.G. Brown Pool and Burnaby Lake Arena. Plans are also underway for development of new recreation and cultural facilities in the city's 4 town centers. There continues to be a great response both in the community and among travelers to the free admission at the Burnaby Village Museum. We continue to work to provide new online citizen services. This year, we also upgraded our award-winning Heritage Burnaby website, which just went live in September and significantly enhances the accessibility of Burnaby's historic records for everyone who wants to access Burnaby photographs, artifacts, and text records. We're also continuing to leverage the benefits of our enterprise business systems to streamline business interaction for all citizens and Burnaby businesses. We continue to work with vendors to move from paper check payments to direct deposits. 75% of the city's payments are now processed electronically. The Intermunicipal Business License Program has now been adopted permanently for trades-related businesses when they operate in Burnaby, Vancouver, Richmond, Delta, Surrey, and New Westminster. Our license office is also making strides in improving upon existing business processes and streamlining applications and renewals. In all areas, we continue to work with residents to ensure our shared vision for the future of our town centers is realized. In the rapidly developing Brentwood Town Centre, for example, the Gilmore Station Plan, developed in partnership with the community, will ensure citizens' expectations are front and center as the land surrounding this station is redeveloped to provide a vibrant gateway to Brentwood. The plan includes significant open areas among the many new residential and commercial buildings. In addition, conceptual design work is well underway for the much anticipated Willington Greenway that will link Brentwood Town Centre to Confederation Park. This green space will provide an attractive, pedestrian-oriented public park linking the Heights and Brentwood Town Centre, 2 iconic areas of our city. The Woodland Site Conceptual Master Plan in the Brentwood Town Centre has been refined based on public input and is advancing towards final adoption. The master plan includes a new neighborhood park, a variety of housing options, new vehicle, cycling, and pedestrian connections, and environmental improvements. In Metrotown, as in Brentwood, high-density development continues to position Burnaby as a regional leader in creating sustainable transit-oriented homes. In October 2015, we opened the 5th city-owned nonprofit office space, the Pioneer Community Resource Center. This facility was obtained through Burnaby's community benefit bonus policy that gives developers the opportunity to add density to a building site in exchange for contributions towards valuable community amenities such as child care centers, affordable housing units, and nonprofit spaces. The Pioneer Center provides a 6,000 square foot home for 2 long-standing Burnaby nonprofits, Burnaby Family Life and Burnaby Hospice Society, adding to the many community amenities already achieved since the city initiated the community benefit bonus policy in 1967. Benefiting the entire city, 20% of all contributions made by a Burnaby's community benefit bonus policy are deposited in the Housing Fund to support housing-related projects. To date, more than $2 million has been granted from the Burnaby Housing Fund to support 257 units of nonprofit housing in the city. In the fall of 2015, Council approved a new program that will make city lands available for non-market and/or co-op housing projects. 2 city-owned sites, one on 18th Avenue and one on Hastings Street, have been offered under the program to date. Edmonds Town Centre is also thriving with a mixed-use community proposed for the Edmonds and Kingsway area. Complementing this, the first phase of the Southgate neighbourhood will move forward in 2016. Ultimately, this 48-acre neighbourhood will include a new 5-acre park and will reflect the citizen input that is shaping its character and its design. The new Edmonds Community Centre opened in 2013, and already the cherished heart and hub of the community is a world-class facility that was recently recognized provincially by the BC Recreation and Parks Association with a Facility Excellence Award, and internationally by the International Paralympic Committee and the International Association for Sports and Leisure Facilities with a Distinction Award for accessibility. For Lougheed Town Centre, the Lougheed Core Area Conceptual Master Plan will advance to a public hearing in early 2016. Based on public input, the Lougheed area will continue to develop as a vibrant transit-connected town centre. Included in the plan is the replacement of the Cameron Recreation Centre with a new pool and a new Cameron Library. Our focus on efficiency, partnership, and innovation continues to ensure that the city's fiscal position remains strong. Our investment portfolio returned an annual yield of 3.93% for 2015 and investment income of $41.8 million. The portfolio has performed well under the extreme and prolonged low interest rate environment, and this income helps to reduce city taxes and provides funding for the city's capital investment in infrastructure replacement. For 2016, the city is projecting income of $39 million and an annualized return of 3.35%. Burnaby staff are also making a significant contribution to our excellent financial position, focusing on efficiency and conservation. Our city's sustainability focus will ensure we continue to maximize value in all areas while providing exceptional service to the Burnaby citizens. For businesses and for citizens, all departments are continuing to make as many services as possible available to those who prefer online transactions. And our purchasing staff, in concert with the Burnaby Board of Trade, continue to offer workshops to the business community to provide support to them in carrying out their work. The city has always been a close partner with our progressive Burnaby Board of Trade and with Tourism Burnaby. In addition, we continue to support and partner with our active and dedicated local merchants associations and the many businesses that call Burnaby home. With the city playing an active role, international and family-operated businesses continue to thrive here. Our RCMP are, as always, providing exemplary service. They have continued to develop their very successful crime reduction strategy that focuses on working with community members and relevant agencies to identify crime trends, localize crime areas, and persons believed to be responsible for the majority of the crimes. In September 2015, the Crime Prevention Unit, in partnership with the City of Burnaby, launched its web-based Business Watch program that gives local businesses immediate online access to information and resources. And the continued development of the Burnaby RCMP Mental Health Coordinator position has allowed the RCMP to identify and assist individuals who have mental health issues and are responsible for a high number of police contacts. Because these few people sometimes have frequent police contacts and can cause a significant drain on police resources, identifying and helping to secure appropriate services for them helps these individuals while ensuring more appropriate use of RCMP resources. Our fire department also continued to provide exceptional service. On average, they respond to 14,000 incidents annually. A new computer-aided dispatch upgrade has also been completed for the department, which will be complemented by software updates for all of the other programs. These software programs are designed to have all fire departments' reporting and personnel needs housed together and will deliver real-time information wirelessly from the department's dispatch center to mobile data terminals located on fire vehicles. Pre-incident planning information is now available to our vehicles and to incident commanders, enhancing decision-making processes at incident scenes and enabling even more effective delivery of emergency services. To ensure the department is well equipped to respond to the city's high-density communities, it is introducing a new training program related to high-rise fire operations. This program will enhance the department's ability to fight fires at all high-rise buildings. This two-part program has a strategy tactics component that also includes modifications to current equipment which will assist firefighters in meeting the challenges they'll face when working on these tall buildings. Turning to the activities of another key service provider, our libraries, they continue to be valued neighborhood focal points. In March, the library completed renovations to the Bob Pretty Metrotown branch, first floor, and the McGill branch. Next year and the following, helped by matching funds through the Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program, that branch, the largest and busiest of the city's 4 library branches, will see $400,000 in upgrades to the second floor. Also next year, the library will celebrate its 60th anniversary with special events running throughout the year. As we reflect on the many achievements of 2015, it is clear that Burnaby has a great base on which to build our promising future. Thank you to all of our citizens, business leaders, and nonprofit organizations for the exceptional contributions you continue to make to the development of Burnaby. Thank you, too, to city staff and all departments for your outstanding commitment to our city and to our citizens. Together with all of you, Burnaby Council looks forward to ensuring that Burnaby exceeds our high expectations for the city's future. And as Mayor, I want to particularly thank all of the members of Council for their great work over the past year and for all of the things I know that they will do over the next year to make Burnaby the very best place to live, work, learn, and play. Thank you very much. All right. Now, moving on to a presentation we have is that we have our friends from Kingsway Imperial Neighborhood Association here today to make a presentation to the city. So, without further ado, I see that Diane Gillis is in the audience. Diane, please, come on up.
Thank you. And the laptop is just for my brain to be able to keep the information I'd like to share this evening, friend of mine. Good evening, Your Worship, Council, city staff, and members of the public who are attending and watching this meeting. My name's Diane Gillis. I live at 6675 St. Charles Place in Burnaby, and I'm the president of the Kingsway Imperial Neighborhood Association, KINA. This evening, we of Kena are here to present to the City of Burnaby the 2015 Kena Community Garland, which, Your Worship, I tried to remember last year the bag we brought wasn't perhaps quite up to snuff, so we've tried to dress it up a little bit, but we'll work on it for next year. And we have a wee bow. Kena was formed, for those of you that do not know, in 2005 as a result of significant criminal and other activity of concern in the Royal Oak Community Plan area. We broadly follow that area, but people don't always know that this Gillies where one area starts and Nelson, etc. So we're a very inclusive community. In 2005, the question to you, our mayor, council, and city staff, and to the Burnaby RCMP was, what can we, the community, do to strengthen our neighborhood to make it a better place to live, work, and attend school? That has become and continues to be the Kena mission statement. With the very respectful and effective working relationship we've enjoyed with you, Burnaby RCMP, Burnaby School District 41, our MLAs, Ross Johan, Kathy Corrigan, MPs Peter Julian and Kennedy Stewart, and many others, we've experienced and continue to enjoy growing positive growth. I can say it not too many times in our community, as we have and continue working together building our community, which is the Kena motto. I've made up a little saying I like to refer to as a result of the great success, thanks to your support and work with us. You can turn any challenge into an opportunity. We had problems in our community, but we've turned that into an opportunity to develop great vibrancy and connectedness. I'd like to point out that we have with us here tonight some of the senior cadets from the 637 Aero Squadron cadets. They are a terrific example of young people in our community who work with us on cleanups and other initiatives, and they're here this evening to help present the garland, and we've got a few other Kena members along as well. Just to let you know how far things have come, a Burnaby RCMP member told me a couple of years ago that a member who transferred out more than 10 years ago and transferred back in asked, what happened to that neighborhood? They don't improve like that. What happened was you listening to us, you working with us, you providing us with opportunities and support to work with you and to support all in our community. So we want to thank you for hearing us, not saying, oh, go on. It's really been very remarkable. I'm a Pollyanna by nature. I would never, ever know what many people thought we could be this far ahead in 10 years. Our feedback, our thoughts, both informally and by welcoming us to sit on so many city committees and working groups that exist to make Burnaby the great place that it is. Katie Alkenshang is a Kena member, and she's one who currently sits on the Public Library Board, as well as previously being a Parks and Recreation Commissioner. We really respect and acknowledge these opportunities that have been in place for so many years, that have brought, processes in place that you're following, listening to our input, bouncing things off of us, and community plans such as the Royal Oak Community Plan, which we know was brought together, as are the others, with community engagement so that you get it to the best of possible for everybody. We really respect and do appreciate that. Sometimes we wonder if people who see the Kena Community Garland, would some of our cadets like to show a portion of it? If when they see it hanging in the city foyer each year, they might wonder, what is that? We know it's not made, thank you, of Swarovski crystals, tinsels, or lights, but it is made up of the thoughts and the appreciation of hope of so many people in our community. We think we're around 1,000 links this year, which means there are that many people. We've provided them with the opportunity to ponder for a minute, what does community mean to you? And to engage them. We've asked people in whatever words, in whatever language they would like to share what community means to them. There is no wrong thought. And it's just one way that we've engaged members to become involved and thoughtful of our community. So each of these thoughts, as per the links, this is how they start, is then joined together. Yes, and you've each got one, and we would invite you to write your thoughts, whatever words, whatever language, as I said, what does community mean to you? But they're then joined together. And that's symbolic of our community joining together with the many partners who've helped us. So, as I said, we're building our community. Each year we build our garland, and with it we believe more community engagement. You might ask how the garland came to be, and I'm not sure if we've ever shared. We were participating in the 2005 Edmund Santa Claus Parade, and we were told, you need to have an activity, and it was like, oh my gosh, what do we do? So easily, Hemlock Printers, one of our partners, we said, do you have any strips of paper left over from any print jobs? We went to another community partner, and we said, would you like to donate staples and pens for people to write? And voila, there was the Keena Community Garland, another example of people joining together. So really, it's just a very simple example of how simple and effectively community can grow, thrive, and be so successful when we all work together. So at our events, what some people have written are things like partnership. And again, we can't stress enough about the City of Burnaby, how you've welcomed and helped us to develop not just a partnership with you, but with others. You've really supported us. Ownership, being selfless and working together, listening. What does it take? What works? Understanding the limits, what can and cannot be done. People helping each other, having kindness and being respectful. Diversity and teamwork where everyone is unique. Bringing people together. An elderly neighbor of ours lives at Doug Drummond Manor, a BC housing facility that is on Kingsway and Imperial. It's sided by Waltham. He walks on the cul-de-sac where I live, and he says on more than one occasion when he sees me out working in the yard or getting in my car, he says, Diane, you please thank the mayor, and you thank the RCMP, and thank you, Keena, for making our neighborhood one we can enjoy living and walking in again. The ladies aren't afraid anymore, and I'm not afraid. Thank you. And he says it over and over again. Another person on the link put, community means saying hello. A few years ago, our grandson, who was then 6, helped me with some chores. We went to get his dad's birthday cake for that evening. We went to the bank. We came down to City Hall just doing chores. And we were walking up to our front door, and I was putting the key in the lock, and he looked up at me and he said, Grandma, do you know everybody in the world? He lives in North Delta, but his perception was when Grandma goes around in the neighborhood, there's so much more, like the people here this evening, so many Keena members, I would never have known, and the friendships are wonderful. So that's how, you know, as I say, from a challenge you can develop an opportunity. Somebody wrote, never give up, lend a hand, help nature. We never gave up because you never gave up on us, and you've supported us, as have our partners. We were very sorry this summer to lose Bill Carey, who was a great city staff member who helped us so much. But through his loss, Jim Thompson, another City of Burnaby staff member, stepped into his role, and he, along with his staff, have been absolutely stellar in helping to address what's a perception some people had was the Keena community is a city dump. You can come and put things wherever you want. We had a fire, and I know, Mr. Goose, you were very good about attending the business that had the fire because of some of that dumping. And it really was another tremendous example. It really reassures people that, hey, the city listens, they're willing to do things. Officer McCrae with parking enforcement is just one other great example of somebody who's helped to address a business that parks wherever they might want. And it sends a message, do what you want, city bylaws don't matter. It takes up parking spaces for businesses that have customers that need to go. But there are many, many more. Kathy Whiff, our anti-graffiti coordinator, has made a huge impact with Constable Murphy on reducing graffiti in the city and in the Keena community, which we no longer hear referred to as the hood. Someone else said, smile often. All these small things that we hope to have people think about so that our neighborhood can continue to grow. Some of the things you've done is, well, the inner city is a thing of the past. It's about to become a residential and retail development. We've seen new development at Royal Oak and Imperial, which was hotbed of criminal activity. Someone came up to me one day and said, something's going on, there's a tank going down the street. It was the RCMP listening when we said this is what we're seeing. They had the integrated team going down there, and it will now be a residential development of people. We think we're probably better to have in the neighborhood, as is the new BC ambulance site, which we think in that light industrial area that is vacated at night will have the right eyes 24/7. The removal by the City of Burnaby and Southern Rail, who's a tenant of Hydro, of the overgrowth under the SkyTrain from Nelson, not just through the Keena community, all the way to Stewardson Way. And Councillor Jordan, you were one who I know 10 years ago we started working on that. We've got a really good relationship with Southern Rail and Hydro. It's not like CN and our previous corridor folks. They're going to pull up the tracks as well. They understood that was not good for walkability and livability to have that overgrown area. The Windsor Neighbourhood Learning Centre is an example of our school district understanding when we said we're concerned about the youth at that school community. They felt we'd be upset the Windsor Learning Centre was unaffordable. We understand budgets and limitations. There is also a Neighbourhood Connect and a neighbourhood learning worker who they've added to that particular school community. I could go on and on. I think you know about the tremendous improvements in the area, but the ability to walk comfortably and enjoy our community is key. The sense of community is key. We cannot thank you enough, and it gives us great pride to again provide to you this year our Keena Community Garland, and this is the 2015 Keena Community Garland. So I'm going to ask the cadets with any further ado, because as I say, we could spend 10 years reflecting on all the great things. Thank you so much. But these are the thoughts of so many people that you have supported and helped by supporting and helping us. And we thank you for accepting them and hanging them in the foyer of City Hall to hopefully help other people think what does community mean to them, with great, great thanks from our community. Would you folks like to come up and help?
All right, I'm coming down.
Oh, you're coming. Are you sure you're strong enough to carry this? It goes on and on and on, and if we have the ability to meet with more people, should we step around to His Worship? Oh. We have a sacred, do we come? Oh, we come with everything.
You come prepared. Push me right on the end.
Sorry, Mayor. You have other jobs to do.
Oh!
So thank you so much for your continuing support.
There you go. Fine to be here, everybody. We'll get you to go around Sunday. There we go.
Ready?
Whatever comes along.
Me? Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Here we go. I want to particularly thank the 637 Air Cadet Squadron. You're great volunteers. We really appreciate everything that you do in the community. Is that I look out here at our scout troop, and this can be your next step, is become involved with the Air Cadets. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Again, I see you so often out there in the community. Thank you. Night. All right. We're now moving on to our proclamation. Councillor Dhaliwal, if you would, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's proclamation. It's a day for a common future. Whereas our long-term economic, social, ecological, and cultural goals form the 4 pillars of sustainable development, and whereas the UN General Assembly formally adopted the tenets of sustainable development on December 11, 1987, when Norwegian Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland presented the report called Our Common Future on behalf of the World Commission on Environment and Development, and whereas sustainable development is defined as development that meets the needs of the future, of the present, without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And whereas Canada played a critical role in fostering and writing our common future, and whereas recent reports warn that adverse effects of climate change are likely to undermine sustainable and all development efforts and goals, recommending increased support for adaptation, mitigation, inclusive green growth, and climate-smart development, and whereas communities are most able to meet their needs by practicing sustainable development, which incorporates a resilient resource base with a secure long-term food and water supply, and whereas efforts to protect our lands and waters include measures for conservation, biodiversity, habitat, and watershed protection that integrate renewable resources, climate adaptive and sustainable development initiatives, and whereas a healthy approach to sustainable development will find ways to bring a balanced growth that meets economic, social, environmental, and cultural goals for everyone's benefit, and whereas residents, businesses, governments, and communities have opportunities to implement recommendations that balance our society's needs and nature's needs while furthering global goals for sustainable development. Now, therefore, Derek R. Corrigan, Mayor of Burnaby, does hereby proclaim Friday, December 11th, 2015, as a day for our common future in the City of Burnaby. Signed, Derek R. Corrigan, Mayor, City of Burnaby.
Thank you, Councillor Dhaliwal, for reading that proclamation on my behalf. And at any time, if the Scouts have to leave, don't worry about protocol. We're moving on now to minutes. A motion to adopt the minutes of the open council meeting held on November the 23rd, 2015. Second. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. A motion to adopt the minutes of the public hearing meeting held on November the 24th, 2015.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, sorry.
There's nothing happening.
I know our screen's out.
I do have something.
Oh my gosh, I now have to...
No signal.
I have to rely on people putting up their hands. It seems so barbaric and primitive.
Aha, there we go. Okay.
All right. I'm going back to the old way. Oh, no, there we go. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the public hearing minutes, I have a question, and I hope Clerk can clarify for me. So I took this home, was reading the minutes, and I took home the copies of the letters and things that were submitted at the public hearing, and I noticed that half a dozen of them or so were a basic form letter, which is not unusual. That happens all the time. But I noticed that at the bottom of one of the letters, it said, thank you, your name, your address, if you live in Burnaby. So pretty clearly giving direction to someone to put their name and address only if they live in Burnaby, and if they live somewhere else, it's probably not a good idea. But then I looked in the minutes tonight, and it says letters submitted opposed to the application, and I'm not talking about the specifics or the people, I'm just trying to get at the process behind this. But some of these letters, when I have the letters, they don't have the address, but their names appear in the minutes as having an address. So did they submit an address, like, at the meeting to you, or how did we get their address?
We did request their address after they had submitted. Usually, as soon as we receive the email or the letter, we reply saying, can you please provide your civic address for inclusion in the public record?
Okay.
And we then receive that information. It can kind of trickles through up until this point.
Okay, and then if they don't wish to provide that, so that to keep that information private, do you indicate that to us in some way, or is it, because there's one that says address not provided, and I have that person's letter, but it doesn't look any different than the other ones that didn't provide their address initially, so I'm...
The missing address has since been provided. I received an email later on this afternoon with the address that can be included. If they don't provide an address, even after continuing to follow up, we do our due diligence to try and find the address, either through the tax roll or through the notification process. Often it is a resident, so we are able to look up their name, so we can do a bit of a... if exhausting all those options, we can't find their address, then I will put in the minutes that an address was not provided.
Okay. I guess, Your Worship, I'm getting concerned that, you know, with the ease with which electronic media can circulate a so-called petition or something like that, and the fact that we as councillors are, you know, legally obliged to take under consideration all of the input that we receive in the public hearing process, it's really important that we validate that these people are real, and it's important to me, at least, where they live when they submit recommendations. I mean, these emails, this form email could be sent from anywhere in the planet, and, you know, to know, I would like to know, like, on the letter who that came from and where they came from, because it matters to me more that if they're from Burnaby submitting that opinion than if they're from Calgary, for example. Right. So, you know, I think that we have to make it clear and consistent in how we handle these things, and we need to, I guess, have the information on the material that's provided to council and not just a name without an address, if that's possible.
The difficulty, Councillor Jordan, is how much staff time do we spend attempting
Tracking
to
it
follow
down,
up
too,
and
yeah.
get an address? And, you know, at this point, I think staff are doing more than should be required to try to ensure they know the importance of council wanting to know where these people live, if they are from our community or if they're from other communities. They're aware of that, and for some people, they just don't automatically include their address when they send an email in. They figure that their email address is good enough. And so it's a difficult thing for staff to follow up on. I know that they are doing this, but I have to say that there is a limit on how much can be spent, how much time can be spent to try to locate it. I think an initial reply to any email saying you must give your address if you wish to have your comments considered by council would be very helpful, and I don't know whether or not staff can fail to put something forward even if it is without address. Is there a requirement that there be an address?
There is essentially, in the advertisements that we put out, we do say that when you're responding to the rezoning, by comment that your name and civic address be included. I don't believe it's a hard and fast requirement so much as it is a practice or a common practice or an expectation. That's That's more about how we go about it. We ask for the addresses, and it is very rare that through our multiple means that we aren't able to identify the individual. And the one you're speaking about, the address I received today, they're a New Westminster resident.
But I don't want to have people spend, hiring a private investigator to find out if these people really exist or not. But I think it is relevant when we're given information on the day of that if it doesn't have an address, then I'm assuming I don't know where they're from. And so I think if we can try to get the address up front before the public hearing date and have that included as part of what the record is at that time, rather than in the minutes 2 weeks later, because that's of no, that's not going to be helpful, right? So I would say if we can do our best to get it right on the day of when the initial material is submitted, that would be helpful in considering all of the information that we have in front of us.
All right, I think staff are trying to do that, but we will try to make sure that the information is obtained as quickly as possible. They're kind of subject to when someone responds to their return email as to providing the address, but I think they all get your message wanting to get that information sooner rather than later. The one thing I can say, though, is that Council wants to know where people live who are making comments on these issues, because people who live in Burnaby, people who live close to where the rezoning is being considered, are certainly of the highest consideration, and people who live farther away or live in other municipalities, while they may wish to comment, won't necessarily be treated with the same weight that you treat people who are from this community and live close to where the rezoning is being considered. So I think that's obvious, and I think people should be aware of that giving your address is an important element, and it's something we require at a public hearing, that people provide their address to us so that we know how they're affected individually, whether it's a large matter of principle or whether it directly affects their property.
Well, and 3 of these letters have the same person's name at the top of the page, but then the following information is not that person's name, and it's not, and that person's name is not anywhere in the record of the hearing. So, did this person make up names and send them under her name? So because of this whole situation, it's getting complicated for us to separate, real citizens and their real opinions from who knows what's coming in via the email network. So that's my concern. Thank you.
All right, you ready for the question on the minutes? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Motion to resolve into a committee of the whole to consider reports. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. And moving on to committee reports, the first is the appointment of municipal directors to Greater Vancouver Regional District. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. The next report is from the Executive Committee of Council. Councillor Dhaliwal, you're the chair.
Thank you, Your Worship. On behalf of the committee, I would like to move the following recommendations, starting with item number 1555, Children of the Street Society. Recommendation is that this grant application be denied.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Item 1559, Volunteer Burnaby. Recommendation is that an in-kind grant in the amount of $1,000 for printing costs be awarded to Volunteer Burnaby to assist with the gift wrap program for 2015.
Seconder. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
And the third item is 1560, Mosscroft Panthers Seniors Boys Basketball Team. Recommendation is that volleyball team, that this grant application be denied.
And that's specifically because the tournament is in the Lower Mainland and we only provide the funds for tournaments that are outside.
That's correct,
Lower
Your Worship,
Mainland.
yes.
Ready for the question?
Yes.
All those in favor, opposed, carried.
That part, Your Worship, would be explained to the applicant in the letter. Thank you.
All right, and we're moving on then to Festivals Burnaby Grant Program applications. Again, Councillor Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Your Worship. On behalf of the Executive Committee, I'd like to move the following recommendations, starting with item number 16, S-001, African Canadian Soccer and Culture Association. Recommendation is that a Festival Burnaby Grant small-scale event in the amount of $8,000 be awarded to African Canadian Soccer and Culture Association in support of the African Soccer and Culture Festival to be held on August 12 to 14, 2016 at the Burnaby Lake Sports Complex.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Right, the next recommendation is, Your Worship, of Vancouver Cantonese Opera, that a Festivals Burnaby Grant small-scale event in the amount of $3,500 be awarded to the Vancouver Cantonese Opera for the Cantonese Opera at Michael J. Fox Theatre on April 16, 2016.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Next item is, Your Worship, a recommendation is that a Festivals Burnaby Grant small-scale event in the amount of $7,000 be awarded to the National Congress of Black Women Foundation for Black History Month activities.
Seconded. Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Item 16L-001 is that a Festival Burnaby Grant large-scale event in the amount of $25,000 to be awarded to the Eurofest BC Society for the European Festival at Swan-Gar Stadium.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
That concludes the report, Your Worship.
Thank you. And the next report is also from the Executive Committee.
Yes, Your Worship. There are 4 recommendations on the adjustment to allocation of space at Brentwood Community Resource Centre. First recommendation is that Council authorize an adjustment to Burnaby Community Services Society's lease space allocation to permit Burnaby Seniors Outreach Services Society to occupy 117 square feet at the Brentwood Community Resource Centre as outlined in Section 3.0 of this report. Recommendation 2 is that Council authorize the execution of adjusted 2016 lease grant for Burnaby Community Services Society and Burnaby Senior Outreach Services Society as outlined in Section 4.0 of this report. Next, that a Council authorize staff to undertake the necessary lease arrangements between the City and the tenants. And finally, Your Worship, that Council authorize staff to issue a request for proposal to occupy space vacated by Burnaby Seniors Outreach Services Society at the Hold'em Community Resource Centre.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your Worship, just very quickly, this Burnaby Seniors Society, this is the Burnaby Seniors Outreach Services Society, was located at Hold'em for many, many years, and that room was becoming a little too big for their needs. They're able to come and partner with the Burnaby Community Services Society to do the addresses here, so Brentwood Community Resource Centre, Your Worship, for a much smaller space, and that would serve the need for the Burnaby Seniors Outreach Services and as well as the Burnaby Community Service. So it's a win-win situation for both of them. It saves both of them a little bit of money and also makes the Hold'em Community Resource Centre space available for another needy organizations to be outlet, Your Worship.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Moving on to 5E, the Financial Management Committee. Councillor Johnson is still away. Councillor Jordan is Vice Chair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I miss Councillor Johnson more and more. Really. So this...
Talking to me about you phoning him every day.
I wish him a speedy return. First of all, this report has to do with the Deer Lake Center West Building, some interior renovations, and the recommendation from the committee is that Council authorize staff to bring down a capital reserve bylaw in the amount of $1.4 million, inclusive of GST, to finance the Deer Lake Center West Building interior renovations project, and I so move.
Second motion.
Your Worship, as we know that the city is experiencing growing pains, especially here at City Halls, and we need some space for our IT department, and since we own the two buildings across the way at Deer Lake, and space is available in those two buildings, we're taking the opportunity to move some of our City Hall staff additional City Hall staff, because there are some people there working already, into that building. As you're aware, and Council's aware, we are doing a needs assessment that will be happening next year, and a project to look into the future and see about our requirements for office space for the city over the next 20 years. But until that is complete, and until further decisions are made down the road, we really do require some additional space for some of our growing departments and our staff from this complex. So the space is available within Deer Lake 2, and we'll be moving 64 city staff and other temporary staff resources there once the renovations and the upgrades are completed. This also provides for close to $1 million for the renovations itself, but also modular workstations and other consultants, design fees, and those kinds of things, to a total of, as I said, $1.4 million approximately.
Great. You ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried.
The next is the 2016 Capital Infrastructure Bylaw funding request for water pressure reducing valve and water main renewals. And the recommendation is that Council approve a capital expenditure of $700,000 for the infrastructure program outlined in this report, and that Council authorize staff to fund the Waterworks Utility Capital Fund the amount of $732,700 to finance the capital programs as outlined.
Thank you.
And again, this is water main and pressure valve replacement in this area. And as you'll see later on under the management report, Your Worship, there's actually a report to award the contract, because it's critical we get this job done before the herons return to the trees in the neighborhood.
Great. You ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. 5G.
The next is with regard to credit card merchant fees. And the recommendation is that Council authorize staff to implement the proposed model for the recapture of credit card merchant fees as outlined in this report, and that Council authorize staff to bring down a fee recovery bylaw related to the use of credit cards.
Second.
And I so move. Basically, the report outlines, Your Worship, a situation that staff had brought to the attention of the Financial Management Committee and other members of Council just relatively recently, about how much it's costing the city to accept credit cards and ATM cards for services that we provide in all aspects of the city's work, and also the inconvenience that is happening for some citizens for the areas where we don't allow the use of credit cards and cash cards for payment for city services, such as taxes. We don't allow you to pay your taxes by credit card. So the committee and staff did a very thorough analysis of all of the implications of this. As the report notes, it now costs the city over $400,000 a year for credit card fees, and staff are projecting that by the year 2020, which is not that far away anymore, 4 years from now, that will double to the tune of $800,000. So basically, the fee-paying public is subsidizing those costs unless we deal with it in some other way. So this report recommends based on our staff's recommendation and also feedback from council, that we have a three-prong approach to recovering some or most of those fees, and there are three different kinds of fees and charges that will be added depending on the nature of the business that you're doing with the city. And when the bylaw itself comes back, you will see the more prescriptive nature of what that means. But basically, the three ways we'll be addressing this cost is through a fee charge to be included within the cost of the service being purchased. So in other words, it would be increase the cost of the service and have that rolled into the price, to specifically add on at the time of purchase of a small fee that would cover the cost of what the city pays to the credit card companies. And also, a third alternative would be a fee paid by the purchaser to a third party who collects payment on behalf of the city at no charge to the city. So that in this instance, and it already is the case, that some people who wish to pay their taxes by credit card do it through a third party. And in that way, we don't have to accept the credit card, but they can pay through a third party with the credit card, and so we would be covering that off as well. So through one of these three methods, we should be able to recoup most of the charges that are now the burden of the taxpayer when it really shouldn't be. So this is how we're going to try to address it into the future. And as I say, when the actual bylaw is developed, you'll see the details of how it intends to be applied across different areas of where the city collects money.
So really, it's a user pay system rather than a relying upon the general taxpayer.
Exactly. That's
Councillor Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do think it's important for us to move along these lines, because more and more people are using their credit card. I use it all the time. People doing their business on the phone, particularly small tradespeople who are not able to come to City Hall just to pay the fee. They want to do it on the phone, etc. So it's important for us to actually bring this as quickly as possible, because I know I'd heard a few complaints over the last few years, and I passed them on to the staff, and I think that was part of the reason this report is forward. So the only thing I would alert to the staff is this, that you know, the most of the credit card companies are generally are pretty rich out there. So I imagine we need to make sure that we have bargained hard, because I think they do change it by vendors, see how much fee should be out there. Okay, so we want to be fighting on behalf of our citizens and the people and our clients that we deal with. That's the best deal we can get. And I'm sure staff is already doing that, because it does vary quite differently, I understand, based on the volume, etc. Since we are in the public realm, we are providing service, I believe we have to be very cognizant how much we add on to already the fees when people are doing business with us. Particularly, Your Worship, many of the citizens are using their credit cards, debit cards for smaller transactions, particularly when they're working with Parks and Rec. A fair amount of people are using that. So I wouldn't want to see these things escalate quite a bit, other than to just recover the cost that the city is paying and trying to keep those under control, Your Worship. Those would be the comments I would offer.
Thank you, and it's staff's intention to make this cost neutral, to ensure that we're only covering the costs as far as the monies that we're receiving. But you know, we're not a big company in terms of Visa and MasterCard and the credit card companies. We're no Amazon, even though we have a large amount of people that are utilizing these services. It's nowhere near what the big companies do, and they're in a much better position to be able to negotiate the fees that they're paying in regard to credit cards. We're in a position right now where we're sharing the same sort of bucket with other municipalities, but as always, I think municipalities should try to work together to ensure that we're getting the best possible bargain for the taxpayer. So I'm sure staff will take into consideration what you've said. All right, you ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. 5H, please.
Your Worship, this recommendation from the committee has to do with the Employee Transit Incentive Program, and the recommendation is that Council authorize staff to implement an Employee Transit Incentive Program effective 2016, January 1, and I would so move. And basically, Council is aware that through changes in TransLink's method of doing things over the past couple of years until the Compass card came in, the program that we had previously in place with the city for our staff, where we had a program to encourage them to use public transit and giving them a slight subsidy for that rather than having to pay for parking facilities for them, became basically inoperable. But now, with Compass Card, starting January 1st, staff have come up with a recommendation of how we can assist our staff by giving them a small incentive, 25% incentive towards the purchase of a monthly fare card, and the total amount included for the city in the provisional budget for next year is $38,000. So, as we know, the cost of one parking spot in the city these days is around $30,000. So if we can encourage people to take transit by this small measure, it saves not only the environment but also the need for parking requirements around this precinct. So, good money.
All right, you ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. There you go. Next report's yours, too.
Renewal of city fleet insurance. Recommendation is council approve the expenditure of up to $815,000 payable to Willis Canada to fund the city's fleet auto liability, collision, and comprehensive insurance programs as further specified in the report. I so move. I have nothing else to say.
Ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Now moving to the committee that you're actually a chair of.
And I would love for my colleague, Councillor Johnson, to take over as Vice Chair, present these reports, but...
He's in rehabilitation. He's working hard to get back.
Thank you. This is a proposed zoning bylaw text amendment having to do with permitted uses in the farmers market. And the recommendation is that council be requested to authorize the preparation of a bylaw amending the Burnaby zoning bylaw as outlined in section 3 of this report for advancement to first reading at the 2015 December 14 public hearing, first reading on December 2015 December 14th, and the public hearing on 2016 January 26th at 7 p.m. And then a copy of this report be sent to the Artisan Farmers Market Society. And I so move. And basically, Your Worship, the farmers market has been quite a success, but the initial bylaw spoke only to the fact that they would sell food and things. And so this report is recommending a change to that bylaw to add other things that have become common at the farmers market, and one thing that's not so common. So the amended bylaw is to provide that the farmers markets will have the retail sale of agricultural products, prepared food and crafts, that's what it said before, and the following accessory uses: non-amplified entertainment, personal services including massage and similar wellness services, community information booths, book exchange programs, children's recreational activities, and for each market a maximum of 3 licensed liquor manufacturer authorized to sell at a farmers market under the BC Liquor Control and Licensing Act. And basically, Your Worship, the new Provincial Liquor Licensing Act provides that British Columbia produced wines and distilled products can be available for sale in small quantities at things such as farmers markets. And the Artisans Group, which sells which promotes the farmers market here in the City Hall parking lot every year, has asked the city to consider that, and our staff are recommending that indeed that be offered for sale. So this is the recommendation, and it will go to public hearing in the new year.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, and carried.
That's all I have.
Thank you. We're moving on to the city manager's report. Item 1, this is to obtain council authority to have city staff and/or agents enter onto the property at 8062 11th Avenue in order to bring the property into compliance. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Item 2. This is to obtain approval to award a 7-year contract for the annual SAP software and enterprise maintenance support. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 3. This is to obtain council approval to award a contract for the purchase of database and server software licenses from Microsoft. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Item 4. This is to obtain council approval to award a contract for the Gilpin Street pressure reducing valve and water main station. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Item 5. This is to obtain council approval for a contract amendment for engineering and contract administration services related to the 2014 Local Area Service Program. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Item 6. This is to obtain approval to award a 2-year contract for the operation of the city's animal shelter and the provision of enforcement services for the animal control bylaw. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Motion the committee rise and report. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Motion the report of the committee be adopted. Seconder? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Bylaws. Councillor Calandino, please. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Right, Madam Clerk, you'll bring that back on when the report is appearing at council. Right. Ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, carried. All right, it's been moved, and is there a seconder? Councillor Valco.
On 13531, I'm wondering if this is the place to bring up. I was wondering what the relocation requirements are for the developer in regards to this project. And the reason I ask is I noticed that Vancouver's bringing in a new bylaw in regards to relocation services and various other expenses. I'm wondering what. I'd like that, and as part of that, if I could get a copy of the and perhaps staff interpretation of what's going on in Vancouver.
All right. Why don't we do this? If council's ready to deal with this, we can do that as a motion arising so that it's here before third reading. Can you have that memo, or do you want to respond to it now, or would you like to get an opportunity to look at what Vancouver's doing?
Yeah, we'll look at Vancouver.
Right? Okay. All right. Well, we still have time to deal with any requirements that may be imposed by council if we move on to third reading. Is that correct?
Your Worship, the prerequisite conditions for this rezoning were set in the public hearing report that came forward to council and was presented at public hearing. We do have a tenant relocation policy, a tenant assistance policy that was adopted by council that does provide for assistance to tenants that are needing to find new accommodation because of the development. Typically provides for a minimum of 3 months notice and 3 months rental compensation, either through free rent or a cash payment equivalent to their rent for 3 months. So that was work that was done through the committee previously.
Okay, if you could provide a memo then on what our requirements are and a memo on what Vancouver is doing, but what Vancouver is doing would have to be placed in a requirement for future rezonings if in fact we chose to do that. Is that all right, Councillor Balco?
Yep, that works.
All right. You ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed and carried. And arising out of it, there's a request for a report on the requirements for this particular rezoning and on any requirements being proposed in the City of Vancouver. Is that right? That's your motion?
Right.
Seconder for it? Second. Great. Councillor Jordan?
Thank you. Just also to note that there were people who spoke at the public hearing about the tenant assistance policy and the interpretation of that, and the very next day staff were following up with the developers and the properties that those folks were referring to, and have done so. There was one that was in a building that was approved before we had an assistance policy, but the developer has agreed to abide by what's in place now. And then the other one is the silver properties, which we know of. But the people were having a misunderstanding about what was being said about our current policy, and so staff are following up on all of those issues that were raised at the public hearing, even though they weren't about this particular Marlborough building, but about other buildings in the area. So they were on it the very next day.
All right, good. Ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. All right.
For reconsideration and final adoption, I move that bylaws number 13533, 13534, 13535, 13536, 13537, 13538, 13539, 13540, 13542, 13543, and 13544 be now reconsidered and finally adopted, signed by the Mayor and Clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, and carried. All right, moving on to new business. Councillor Valco.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just before we leave, I didn't speak after you did your reminiscence of Councillor Redmond, but I wanted to say I was speaking to a retired senior staff member today. I thought this was an anecdote that was indicative of exactly how former Councillor Redmond interacted with our staff here, and as a lot of our staff know, she was a force to be reckoned with when it came to any issues here. But it was a pretty good little anecdote, because many years ago when LED lights first came in, Christmas lights, Celeste showed up and the city, as we see our display out here, and this is a reminder to our staff and those of us that will be going across the plaza at the end of the meeting, Celeste came by and noticed that we were putting up the old incandescent lights, and here's the new LED lights which had come in, and Celeste suggested to our staff that perhaps they might want to look at the new Christmas LED lights for various reasons, the energy savings and various other things. Well, not a lot was proceeding apace, so Celeste took it upon herself, went up to London Drugs, bought a number of strings of lights, and if you walk out on the plaza, you'll see the 2 trees that are out there. And those lights, I don't know how many years ago Celeste purchased those. It's got to be 5-10 years ago. They're still out there burning bright, but I just bring the anecdote out because Celeste was that type of person that if you want to get something done, you're going to have to get it done on your own, and so I think it's a pretty good little anecdote. I wanted to also relate to to the planning department that one of our planners had spoken to me after they'd heard of Celeste passing and said, the minute Councillor Redmond was no longer on council, his workload was reduced by about 50%. So that's a little warning to senior staff members and my colleagues around the table that if you really do read the reports, you can have an impact on what goes on around this table like Councillor Redmond did. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
The item G, the draft regional affordable housing strategy, it doesn't say that it's coming to the Community Development Committee, but I'm sure it is.
Was because the deadline for submission is before the next meeting date. So the requirement to provide feedback will happen before the next committee meeting, the first.
Oh, trust me, this is going to go on for years. I think we better look at it because there'll be several opportunities for feedback. So if we could refer to the committee, thank you.
They were taking that deadline seriously.
Yeah, this is meant to run
You're on
forward.
the committee, you don't take it seriously.
No.
All right, so if you would send that over to the committee for review. Right, and I've got a housekeeping motion I wanted someone to move, that council authorize payment of all expenses incurred by Councillor James Wang for his travel to Foshan, Zhuhai, and Zhonghan, China from November 3rd to 9th, 2015 as a representative of the Burnaby City Council for the purpose of participating in the Zhongshan Friendship Forum and promoting engagement with Burnaby's friendship and sister cities in our sister province of Guangdong, China. And I know that he was in Foshan particularly because of a business deal that was helped along the way by the city of Burnaby between Ballard Fuel Cells and the Foshan city government that is putting in place fuel cell buses. So it was a very important opportunity, and the Premier was there at the same time as Councillor Wang was there, and I think everyone recognized that Burnaby, through its connections with our Chinese friendship cities, had been a big help in making this happen. So thank you, Councillor Wang, for going over on our behalf. Great, move it. You have to move it for me.
Oh, I move it.
All right, seconder? Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Councillor Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Your Worship. I refer to the purple page, item K. It's a letter from Jordan Croft, sales of puppies and kittens at Pet Habitat Metro Town. Your Worship, I wanted to refer this to the staff to follow up for the complaints that have been raised by the writer, Your Worship, to follow, because I recall when we amended that bylaw, there were certain conditions we had placed, and I recall the proponents of that Pet Habitat had come here and had affirmed their commitments to following our bylaws, and I just want to make sure those bylaws are followed and the response be generated back to the writer on those concerns, Your Worship.
Great. So staff will follow up on this, as it appears that it is complaints about whether or not the animals are being treated the way they are supposed to be treated under our requirements. So what I would ask is that staff perhaps report back to council on that.
So I move that, Your Worship.
All right, it's moved, seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Is there any other new business or inquiries? Motion adjourned. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Thank you very much, council. Thank you, staff. And thank you to everyone who attended the meeting.